Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. Oh boy, did you know today is George Lucas's birthday? Happy birthday to the creator of this amazing galaxy. His saga changed the lives of millions forever, including myself. So today we're going to be talking about all three Fetts, Boba, Jango, and Omega. And we begin with an Easter egg from Ahsoka Season 1. Star Wars may have already confirmed that by the time of the New Republic, Omega has already met Sabine and Ahsoka. The Bad Batch Season 3 epilogue showed us Omega becoming a rebel pilot, and there is a clue in Dave Filoni's live-action series that they do go on to meet. In Ahsoka Season 1, Episode 1, Master and Apprentice, there is graffiti painted by Sabine of Omega's Tuka doll Lula and Jyn Erso's doll Starry, and we see this on the walls of the comm tower where she lives, on Lothal. We know that Sabine Wren met Jyn Erso in Forces of Destiny, a much-forgotten animated show. We also now have confirmation that she met Omega at some point, and the clone rebel had such an impact on the colourful-haired Mandalorian that she literally painted her Tuka doll the number 99 and Crosshair's tattoo as well. This was a major Easter egg I remember some fans talking about, but now that Omega survives well into the Rebel era, there is more context and it seems as though they're setting up a major crossover. Let's hope it's in Ahsoka Season 2. And are you guys noticing the sheer amount of poetry and connections if Omega does join the fight? She was held on Tantis, a storehouse associated with Thrawn in the old expanded universe, which in fact is inspiring much of the Mando story going forward. And now she can lend a hand to Hera, her old childhood friend, which she met in the Bad Batch Season 1, who just so happens to be Thrawn's main adversary in Rebels, and also in Ahsoka's second season, which is coming up. Dave Filoni admitted this, saying, quote, "We could be in for an almighty clash of blue versus green. Hera Syndulla was Thrawn's foil throughout Star Wars Rebels, so pitting the two generals against one another again is something I find very interesting, something I want to pursue." And even Lars Mikkelsen himself had some thoughts of what Thrawn is ultimately wanting to do. He says he wants to tidy up shop, tie up some loose ends. The New Republic needs to buckle up, because the Imperial Remnant is preparing to strike back. If Omega became a rebel pilot, Hera is no doubt going to call upon her in Ahsoka Season 2. This is the biggest connection I can definitely see them doing, and I'm here for it. I can't wait to see Omega in live action, and we've had tons of discussions about who should portray her. The New Republic needs all the help it can get. Many of the Rebellion's old pilots became Rangers of the New Republic, and so it's entirely possible we see Hera, Seb, who appeared in Mando, Ezra helping in the fight against Thrawn, but also maybe helping to try and get Sabine and Ahsoka back from Peridea. Now I've also spoken about the possibility of Omega in Andor Season 2 because she does leave Pabu just after Mon Mothma's declaration. And the Jyn Erso Easter egg in Ahsoka Season 1 being connected is also rather remarkable, because while we're not going to see Jyn in Andor Season 2 because she's left Saw Gerrera's group, and by the end of Andor she is in prison, by the time of Rogue One, in the Imperial Vault, Jyn is the one who reads out the secret Imperial projects, and one of them is Mark Omega. Following the debacle on Tantis, despite Hemlock's death, did the Empire keep pursuing her? This connection makes for an interesting link between all of the characters. I just find it such a shame Jyn Erso died in Rogue One, but her sacrifice was pivotal for the rebellion. And so now my dear friends, Boba Fett. A couple of days ago I gave you one or two tidbits, but here is something a bit more major, and it comes from the most unlikely source, The Simpsons. Yes, I'm serious. If you guys remember just before the strikes in 2023, Making Star Wars reported that for an upcoming Mandoverse project, they're using Slave One's cockpit, and Boba Fett sporting a new look. Well, it's possible The Simpsons just unveiled the unreleased design, and here's why fans think this. The other night, The Simpsons said a Star Wars tie-in special and Boba Fett was in it. Considering it's a Disney crossover, a few outlets are adamant they've just given us a sneak preview of a new look. The spikes, just above the T-visor on the helmet, very reminiscent of the Clone Wars series, similar to Pre-Vizsla, as well as new markings for the shoulder pads. I've heard it being said they didn't add this for no reason, especially when all other Star Wars characters have been more or less accurate in the crossovers so far. Other additions include the return of a codpiece, and new shin and boot armor too. It is most likely just coincidence and artist license and styling, but imagine if they're inadvertently teasing something more than this. Some have said the spikes are less like Pre-Vizsla, and more like a Tuscan tribute. I mean, we're just speculating, it's just a comedy show. But a fascinating spot nonetheless. Boba Fett fans take note. If he returns in The Mandalorian and Grogu and he looks a bit more like this, then we would have known. They were teasing this since 2024. With more and more news mounting up for the Mando movie, we might eventually get word that Temuera Morrison is in fact involved. That would be huge. As promised, we have a third Fett update, and this one concerns Jango, the DNA template for the Army of the Republic. And if you guys read the old Expanded Universe books and comics, then you know he had a whole backstory before that. A Mandalorian foundling in and of himself. But most of the information we know about him does come from legends. But now, thanks to a new book, Secrets of the Clone Troopers, we have our first canon glimpse at Jango Fett involved in a battle against other Mandalorians. On the channel we've spoken about Secrets of the Sith, Secrets of the Jedi, Secrets of the Wookiees, and now Clone Troopers. The art in this book is pretty epic, so let's take a look. Here we have Jango Fett using his ZX miniature flame projector. A lot of this book is from the perspective of Captain Rex, and here is what he had to say about Jango Fett. We clones take pride in being our own people, but I'm not ashamed to admit that none of us would have ever existed if it hadn't been for the man who provided our original genetic template, the legendary bounty hunter Jango Fett. From the scattered records I've managed to piece together over the years, it seems that Jango was adopted into a Mandalorian clan at a young age. He may have just been a foundling, but he soon proved himself to be as formidable as the warriors who took him in. After earning armor made of Beskar steel in the Mandalorian Civil Wars, Fett went on to become one of the galaxy's premier bounty hunters. It was said that there wasn't a target he couldn't track down, or a threat he couldn't eliminate for the right price. The infamy Jango Fett gained over the years eventually earned him some unexpected attention. A mysterious benefactor with deep ties to the Republic approached Fett with an unusual offer. They were planning to build a secret army and wanted Fett to supply his own DNA for the cloning procedures. Suitable terms were negotiated, including a payment of 20 million credits, as well as, of course, an unaltered clone of himself. And Rex finishes by saying, "Many of my fellow clones looked at Jango Fett as some sort of father figure. Sadly, he never held the same affection for us." Temuera Morrison recently did Celebration in Japan and also Brussels, Belgium, and he was discussing his love for both characters Jango and Boba Fett. But from the sounds of things, in a rapid-fire interview, it seems like he now prefers Boba Fett just a little bit more. What a gem. And so finally, my dear friends, in other Star Wars news, Ahmed says he wants to make a Jedi John Wick movie as Kelleran Beck. In other words, and here's the quote, "I want to do a Jedi John Wick as Kelleran Beck, and I don't even need to say any words. I just want to do 2 hours of lightsabers and people in the way." I mean, suddenly I really want to see that. He didn't have much dialogue in Grogu's flashback in The Mandalorian Season 3, and he didn't need it. His double-bladed Jarkai at the Jedi Temple against the Clone Troopers was enough. His physical movements, they did all of the talking. I'd love to see it, but to be honest, is it going to happen? Probably not. Instead, why not integrate the next part of the Kelleran Grogu flashback in the upcoming Jon Favreau movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu? Now there is a place to bring him in. I've got to say this also speaks to the spectacle aspect at the heart of Star Wars. We all love a good visually impressive lightsaber fight. Whether it's in the Clone Wars series or the prequels, even the original trilogy, whether you want to argue about it or not, lightsaber fights are at the heart of what Star Wars is all about. They're a big part of it. Not thematically, but visually speaking. I don't know. I really want to see more Kelleran. It's also one of the reasons I want to see more Asajj. Her appearance in The Bad Batch was really cool but very brief. And one of the reasons I've always hoped Mace Windu survived Order 66. I would love to see a begrudged Jedi in exile who kind of went wild after surviving that fall. Any Jedi who is an incredible duelist, that is always going to be a treat. So I say, let Ahmed do this. This interview with Comic Book was to commemorate the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. Ahmed of course played Jar Jar Binks, and he kind of says he wants to do more than just what happened in Mando. He said that's 1/10 of 1% of what I could do. And he goes on to describe much of the physicality was inspired by Filipino martial arts. And he says, quote, "Nobody knows very much about how deep those arts go. Most of the Jedi are Japanese samurai influenced. The way they move, the style they move in, and the weapons they use are revolutionary. So yes, hoping for more Kelleran.